I interviewed a 24-year-old lady from my mum's work named Mu for my cultural plunge assessment task, who has a cultural background different to my own. I was born in and grew up in Australia, whereas Mu was born in China and moved here with her family in 2010, as they believed that there would be more opportunities here in terms of employment and education. After speaking to Mu, I learnt that her experience of schooling was quite different to my own, as most of it was overseas, despite having studied accounting at La Trobe University once she moved to Australia. She mentioned that whilst in China, she had little one-on-one time with the teachers, with a teacher-to-student ratio of approximately 1 to 100, as a result of China's extremely large population. Teachers therefore wouldn't have had as much time to answer the questions of individual students, limiting their ability to succeed academically. This is very different to my own experience of schooling, as the classroom sizes here are much smaller, with a teacher-to-student ratio of approximately 1 to 30, ensuring that the teachers have enough time to allocate to each student within the classroom. I always felt as though I could put my hand up in class and share my ideas. Mu also mentioned that more attention was given to the boys within the classroom, as in China, males are viewed as more dominant and powerful than females, relating to issues of sexism that still exist within their culture today. In comparison to my own education, I never felt disadvantaged or excluded as a result of my gender. In most Australian classrooms, both males and females are given the same opportunities and are encouraged to try new things and extend the boundaries of their comfort zone. Having moved to Australia, Mu noticed a positive change in her schooling experience, where the teachers would devote time to her regardless of her academic ability or gender. A majority of teachers working within Australia make it a priority to ensure that their students are included and feel capable of success. Feeling a sense of belonging and inclusion at school encourages individuals to participate in the classroom and share their ideas and therefore get the most out of their schooling experience. Having Mu share her own experiences based within her cultural background has allowed me to consider and reflect on my own educational experiences, positioning me to recognise and acknowledge how lucky I am as an individual to have lived in Australia my whole life, as I have been given so many opportunities regardless of certain characteristics that define me as an individual, not only in regards to my education but also just life in general. It is important to consider how our identity and culture influences the decisions that we make, how we choose to live our lives, and who we are as individuals. Our identity refers to the characteristical components that differentiate us from others, such as our personality, appearance, and beliefs. And our culture refers to how we behave according to the customs and norms of the groups that we have grown up in and belong to. It is our experiences based on our culture and identity which shape us into who we are as individuals. Culture and identity fit into various aspects of our lives, as identified by Constantine and Rorts, influencing our ability to feel socially accepted and included by the other members of our community. We each have the responsibility to protect diversity by becoming more aware of those around us, as proposed by Chapol, and contribute to the creation of a more fair and just society, ensuring that all individuals have access to equal rights and opportunities. We must also be considerate of the fact that people have different worldviews, and therefore things aren't always perceived in the same manner. In an ideal society, there would be no us or them as suggested by Burnett, in light of his concept or theory of othering, and all individuals would be treated equally. Although we live in a realistic and imperfect society, where we recognise that everyone is different and therefore it is not necessarily ideal or appropriate to treat all individuals the same, as we each have different needs according to our cultural backgrounds and social identities. For example, all individuals shouldn't be expected to dress in the same manner, as some people wear certain items of clothing based on their traditions and beliefs. In terms of addressing diversity within school communities, a number of different approaches have been taken in an attempt to satisfy the different learning requirements of different students and promote equality within the schoolyard. It is vital that all students feel accepted and included, regardless of their cultural and social background, so that they will participate within the classroom and become engaged in the school curriculum, allowing them to advance academically. A variety of methods can be adopted in order to address the inequalities that exist among students, in order to promote equity and to engage diversity, as encouraged by Graham and Harwood, although we must first recognize what they are. Most inequalities are associated with different abilities, socioeconomic status, and/or cultural background. For example, students should be encouraged to study different countries so that they become more culturally aware and accepting of others, promoting inclusion of all individuals within the classroom. Equal amounts of time should also be spent with all students, preventing similarities to my interviewee Mu's experience of schooling, whereby she felt left out and ignored. All students should have equal access to the resources within the school, providing equal opportunities for all individuals to succeed. It is also important to take different approaches when teaching lessons, so that the different learning styles of each student can be met. For example, create tasks that require students to get involved one week by working in groups, and the next by creating drawings that depict their understanding of the content, as some students work better when collaborating with others, and some are visual learners. This will also work as an effective method of keeping the classroom engaging, exciting, and from falling into repetition. Closing any gaps that exist within the classroom will create a safe and inclusive learning environment, promoting maximum participation and therefore a highly successful and functional classroom. Our culture and identity extends far beyond the classroom. It changes the way we view certain aspects of society, the ways that we choose to spend our time, and in some cases, even the way we view others. Our background therefore influences the kinds of experiences that we are subjected to, in terms of our relationships, education, employment, and lifestyle. As proposed by Thomas, we must be aware and respectful of these differences as time changes, so that we are able to continue to advance and grow as a society. My grandparents were all born in Malta and immigrated to Australia during their youth in the hope of finding more opportunities here. They started a life in Australia where I grew up and have lived ever since. After having interviewed Mu and making comparisons between my culture and her own, I think it is safe to say that Australian culture is more relaxed in many aspects relative to Chinese culture, particularly in regards to schooling. As a family, we don't have too many traditions, although a big thing for us is education. My parents have been fairly laid back in regards to most aspects of my life, allowing me to make my own decisions, although they have always made a big deal about education. They encouraged both my sister and I to try our best in school, so that we would be able to move on to university, obtain a stable job, and therefore each have a great future. I've always had access to the required resources needed to complete all of my schoolwork, allowing me to succeed academically, and have always had access to the basic necessities. So I'd say that in a sense, I've had a relatively easy life filled with lots of opportunities to achieve and advance. Having had all of these privileges my whole life, as well as social and cultural capital, I've unconsciously become oblivious to the other end of the spectrum, whereby I haven't really considered the struggles and hardships that others have faced. This therefore produces a tendency for me to judge others before I consider their own experiences in relation to their cultural and social background, as it is easy for me to forget that they haven't had the same opportunities and privileges that I have had. For example, if I see an individual starting an assignment only a day before it's due, I might immediately label them as lazy or unorganized, failing to consider the possible reasons that they might not have started the assignment yet. They could have difficulty understanding English and therefore couldn't understand some of the questions, or they may not have had access to the internet or even a computer at home that would have enabled them to start it, making it difficult for them to work on the assignment. I'm sure I'm not the only person guilty of passing off these immediate judgments, although I believe that by being more aware of the fact that not everyone had the same privileges, I will become a more understanding individual and therefore hopefully stop myself from judging others. Both Mo and I agree that teachers have a large impact on student identity. This is because they have the ability to influence not only how we view others, but also how we see ourselves. It is up to them to ensure that each one of their students understands that they have the responsibility to be accepting of others and have the right to feel respected. I found this whole experience beneficial as it has allowed me to become more aware of different cultures in a whole new context, as well as consider the different opportunities and experiences that others have been exposed to. It has also allowed me to reflect on my own experiences in ways that I never have before, positioning me to hopefully become a more accepting teacher in the future, who will go out of my way to make all of my students feel a sense of worth and belonging, regardless of where they come from, who they are, or what difficulties they may have already had to face as an individual. I am now very aware of my future responsibility in the classroom to acknowledge the differences among students in terms of their social and cultural background, and will take it upon myself to ensure that each of my students becomes more culturally aware and accepting of all members in the classroom, which will translate into their acceptance of others in society.